What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and we trust that you are stressed. It is Friday, September 10th, 2021. The Dallas Cowboys are 0-1 on the season after a 31-29 loss on Thursday night in the season opener to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've been putting out content all day long on our YouTube channel, on our podcast network, on our website to discuss the Cowboys' loss and how we felt a sense of optimism even after it. But Friday has brought with it a lot of news that is devastating when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. To help me discuss all of this and break it down, it is Tom Ryle from bloggingtheboys.com. Tom, the headliners, Michael Gallup has a calf strain and is going to miss 3 to 5 weeks. This was the news that first came out on Friday afternoon, and everybody was kind of processing this and kind of dealing with it and squaring it in their own minds, saying, there's receiver depth here, Cedric Wilson, etc. Things are going to be okay. And as soon as the dust finally, ultimately settled on that, we had a bomb drop on us. Dallas Cowboys right tackle Lyle Collins suspended for the next 5 games for violating the league's substance abuse policy. How are you feeling on this day after the Dallas Cowboys season opened?
I was feeling so good after last night. It really saw a lot of positive things. Most of all, Dak Prescott is indeed back. There are only the most hardcore doubters are still questioning his status as one of the top quarterbacks in the league after that performance. Lyle Collins really has thrown a wrench into the works. The line looked very good, even with Connor McGovern subbing in for Zach Martin, and that included Collins playing at tackle. Having him and Tyron Smith was great to see out there after we missed them for basically the entire season last year. Now we got to survive 5 games. And I mean, it's, the Cowboys really need to stack up the wins now to going into the bye so that they can, make sure they're firmly in the race for the NFC East. And now we've got a big question mark. Do they roll with Ty Nsekhe, which is kind of an unsettling idea because he seems to have been having problems. At least he wasn't looking as strong as we'd hoped he would. Or do they now make the daring move to kick Zach Martin out to right tackle and trust McGovern to handle the right guard position as well as he did last night? Because Martin came in and looked great briefly playing right tackle last season before he got injured. And that is the one thing that makes me wonder, is the coaching staff going to hesitate just because the injury happened after he switched positions, after he'd been pretty much an Iron Man playing guard? Mm-hmm. A lot here, and a lot of just the questions of what really happened. This just sounds odd, and we don't know right now, so we have to be cautious. We don't want to speculate. The good thing, I guess, to me is that he didn't actually get a positive test. But
let me jump in here, Tom, because the report now. There are a number of reports. Adam Schefter was the first person to report this, and then a lot of insiders followed suit. But Adam Schefter just reported that he was suspended. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk throughout, the Lyle Collins suspension is not final and should have been disclosed, or should not, and should have been disclosed, or should not have been disclosed, a report, I think he meant to say. But as usual, the NFL's confidentiality policy is breached by, among others in the NFL, the NFL's in-house media operation, although Adam Schefter does not work for NFL Network. But NFL Network has reported on this. It was NFL Network's Tom Pelissero that was the first report that this was due to a violation of the league's substance abuse policy. We have gotten some questions from people here. Christopher Wagen, great friend of the show, says, any chance the number of games gets reduced in appeal, or am I holding out false hopes? It has already, Tom, been reported that this has been appealed by Lyle Collins and his representation. And so this is the final verdict, seemingly. This is more than just Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, the Ian Rappaports of the world reporting it. The Dallas Cowboys themselves have announced the suspension. So for any Cowboys fan who is crossing their fingers, hoping that this is going to work out somehow, some way, maybe this gets knocked down to 3 games, maybe it goes away entirely. The fact that the Cowboys have announced it themselves, Tom, does make it seem like this is going to stick.
Yes, I saw the Hellman was the first one I saw, and he came out and said the team has confirmed it. And yeah, looks like a solid, a done deal that you're going to get. The suspension looks hard in there, and now it becomes a question of what do they do to kind of shuffle around. And as I said, they can get creative, they can go cautious. I don't know what's the safest thing to do, because job one has to be to protect Dak Prescott, and the line did a fairly decent job of that, other than the fact that Vita Vea is just a human monster and was getting a lot of pressure. But Dak only took one sack, and that was incredible against the Tampa Bay defense. So, now they have to do everything they can to keep it up, because it's fairly obvious that the season, as we all knew, depends on Dak, and they can depend on him if he's not getting banged around and beat up back there. His performance was just outstanding. So this is going to be a major issue, and it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. I mean,
see, like you're using the word fascinating, and it is fascinating, certainly, to play, GM, but it's terrifying. This is hard to process, Tom, because what happened that he was allowed to play last night on Thursday night that now he's not. The report from NFL Network is that Lyle apparently missed drug tests, that he was suspended for a failure to appear. How could this happen? And I think those are the questions that we have. What disconnect between Lyle and the Cowboys and the league office and Lyle's representation, whoever is involved in this conversation for him, how could he fail to appear to take these tests? Is troublesome. I mean, I think the Michael Gallup news is obviously something that is unideal too, right? And we're dealing with the aftermath of that. But you've got wide receiver depth if you're the Cowboys, right? And I think on a 1 to 10 scale, the panic was maybe at a 4 as a result of the Gallup news. But this is a 10. I mean, this is a 10, and this is frustrating, and this is concerning, because La'el Collins missed the entire 2020 season for the Dallas Cowboys, comes back, and before the season even kicks off, he's got some neck stingers going on. He's got 2 different stingers. Is he going to play? Is he going to be all right? Comes out, to your credit, or your point, Tom, his credit, plays well against Tampa, a stout pass rush at that. But, now he's going to miss, 5 more games. So you're talking, counting last season, in 22 straight games, or rather 23 straight games, La'el Collins will have played 1. And that's a really disappointing thing when you consider it all. He signed his, look, we're still waiting for more information on this to come out, which is why we wanted to do this live, to kind of sit here as all the reports sort of unfold. But he signed his contract extension with the team, Tom, in 2019. Was phenomenal. After that season, we were all talking about, man, the Cowboys really got ahead of this. We're really smart, etc. So he played all 16 games then, missed 16 games, now plays 1. So that's 17 out of a possible 33. So now it's 17 out of a possible 38 games that the Cowboys have gotten off of this contract extension. This has just been one mess after another for a bunch of different reasons.
Yeah, and I'd have to say that it seems to me that there also is another factor to remember while we're talking about all the solutions that are possible with Zach Martin. He doesn't want to play tackle. He's basically stated that, so that's to be considered. But I guess if there is the tiniest sliver of a silver lining, it's that the Cowboys have an extra couple of days to work on this, because they've played the first game. And if you were questioning how come this didn't happen before the game last night, I think the NFL held on to it so the Cowboys would have the best chance of giving them the exciting, close game.
Well, you say that, Tom, and NBC announced like an hour ago, officially announced, that the ratings for last night's game were the highest of any NFL kickoff game since 2015. And so, I don't think anybody here is naive enough to believe that, no, the NFL isn't at all looking out for its best interest, isn't at all trying to, pile up the stacks of cash as much as they can in their favor. That kind of makes sense. That maybe, the NFL said, let's get him out there. We want a really great game. We got a really great game, went down to the wire, got a game-winning field goal. Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, everybody was awesome, whatever. And now it's time to handle business. Now it's time for our Friday afternoon news dump. But, this is the same, NFL office that still has yet to rule on Deshaun Watson, as an example. I mean, this is frustrating. And I think if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan that's pissed off or sad or mad or frustrated in any sense, I think you're entitled to that, because you don't know who to direct your emotions towards. But right now, there are a lot of them.
Yeah. And it's just like, what more do we have to have? We finally had things looking like they were going to come along, and this is just a shot to the gut. I was actually going to mention maybe a little bit lower than that, but we'll try to keep this family friendly here. So I just have to see. We all have to see. I shouldn't say just me, but we don't know. Obviously, we're not making any decisions here, but this is a body blow. And like I said, it's just such a swing of emotions because we've already gone through a real roller coaster last night. When the Cowboys actually took a lead in the final 2 minutes of the game against the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now this has just come up, and suddenly 5 games it looked like they had a chance to maybe win all of them, or at least go 4-1 over the next 5 games. Now you wonder, is this going to cost them another game or two? Is this going to psychologically impact the team? I don't know what to say about it. And what else can they come up with? I don't know if there's anybody out there they could sign on an emergency basis that would be an improvement over the current options. That they don't have. I saw somebody in the comments was mentioning bringing Alicon up, and I don't think he's ready to be any help. You're still looking at, you're going to have either Nsekhe, Steele, or Martin playing right tackle against the San Diego Chargers. And, we'll have to find out how they're going to do that. And I think that's probably going to be something they're really going to be working on in practice to come up with the best answer for that.
So the Dallas Cowboys, Tom, as you were talking there, now have publicly announced this, have a story up on DallasCowboys.com, which again, I realize that there are technically small windows of hope out here that Lyle Collins might not be suspended for 5 games. With pen being put to paper, it is the internet, but it feels doubtful. The question now is, how should the Cowboys handle the right tackle situation? Because you brought it up. Chris Werner says, what do I think, Art? Or what do I think? Asking me. I think this sucks. I mean, I think that this is not fun. I mean, I think, a lot of people said this exact sentence or some version of it this morning, Friday morning. You know what? The Cowboys may have lost, but I feel much better about this team than I did 24 hours ago. And I think we all felt that way. Obviously, a win would have been nice, but the Cowboys showed us a lot. Dak Prescott showed us a lot. And now I don't know that I feel worse, but whatever teeny tiny little ounce of hope I had or you had is really starting to be affected by this. And, you talked about the psychological impact, Tom. It is now 9 days until the Cowboys play another game. And that's a benefit to the team from a preparation standpoint. But this is a long time to sit in this funk for all of us. And that is really unfortunate, obviously. But as far as how to handle this, I don't think Ty Nsekhe's ready. I don't think Terrence Steele's ready. I certainly don't think Isaac Alarcon's ready. I think Isaac belongs on the practice squad, and you hope that he's an option for 2022 and beyond. I know everybody loved him on Hard Knocks, but let's be real about things. I will say, DJ IQS, Tom, says go back in time and grab a pre-injury Eric Williams. I haven't seen this floating out, and I promise I'm not trying to just play hindsight, because that's a really, easy way to look at things. As an example, I tweeted during the game facetiously somewhat, but Twitter doesn't always, kind of give you the benefit of that. Man, this Cowboys defense looks like it could use Patrick Surtain or JC Horn, right? I understand that they were off the board when the Cowboys picked, right? I'm not out here saying that Cowboys are a bunch of buffoons. They passed on these players. They obviously didn't have a chance, but you know who the Cowboys did pass on, Tom? Twice. Rashawn Slater. Right now, tell me you wouldn't trade Micah Parsons for Rashawn Slater. And I know a lot of people are in love with Micah Parsons, myself included, but you count it like that. That's what that to me is more representative of. The point it's representative of is the Cowboys counted. They believed in, they trusted Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins to be there, to be accountable, and to be options for them, in general, right? Like we all kind of assumed, Tyron might have to miss 3 games, like he's kind of had to do, whatever the case may be. I don't think anybody was supremely worried about Lyle Collins from a health perspective before the stingers of the last month or so. But now, now you're really like, man, did we, were we counting our chickens before they hatch type thing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. My mind is swimming, and like I said, because we don't know how this happened, and I don't want to even start throwing speculation out, but What I do think is certain is that the team has known this was coming for a few days. This stuff doesn't just land on Jerry Jones's desk out of the blue like it does for the media. The team was aware, I think, this was coming because, as has been mentioned, there was an appeal going on. So the team was probably aware of that, maybe had their fingers crossed that that would help the situation. But, now I don't know what we're going to do, and I'm just hoping it works out and Dak Prescott doesn't get banged up because we saw what happened with Terrence Steele last year. We're not sure about Nsekhe, and I'm not sure how the whole Martin thing is going to go.
So, Tom, a lot of people have floated out. This is a creative option, obviously. Kick Zach Martin out to right tackle, play Connor McGovern at right guard. He looked solid there last night, totally with you 100%, and survive. And I think it should be mentioned, the benefit, there's not a benefit, but the nice thing about the next 5 games for the Cowboys, that takes them up to their bye, by the way. So we're now starting in week 2, right? The week 1 game is already done for the Cowboys. So we're talking weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The Cowboys have a bye in week 7. And I know we haven't even gotten into Michael Gallup yet, but Michael Gallup's had 3 to 5 weeks. When that news was the only thing of the day, I was personally thinking, you know what, the Cowboys might try to carry Michael Gallup through the bye. That way they give him that extra week to fully get right. He's obviously a candidate to go on injured reserve. He could come back in 3 weeks if that's the case. But these next 5 games, you're at the Chargers next Sunday. After that, you get the Eagles at home on Monday Night Football, then the Panthers, then the Giants, then you're on the road against the New England Patriots before your bye. So not exactly a murderer's row of teams that you're up against. Not exactly a murderer's row of pass rushers either, although Joey Bosa is obviously going to be a problem next week. It's not like you have to play Chase Young right now. But there is another option, Tom, besides this Zach Martin situation, which you mentioned. Zach Martin doesn't want to play tackle. Malcolm suggests Connor Williams at right tackle and McGovern to left guard. Now, we've seen the Cowboys experiment with Connor Williams moving around this preseason and training camp period. However, that was at center, not at right tackle. We know that Connor Williams played tackle in college at the inferior university in the state of Texas, as you and I both know. But, I mean, that remains an option. But ultimately, something I've been pounding the drum about today is the Cowboys really made a mistake not establishing competition for Greg Zuerlein. Well, you know what? They also made a mistake by just assuming the Ty Nsekhe thing was going to work out. I mean, the answer to this, and I'm not saying this is a good answer to anybody, might be Terrence Steele. That might be the best answer here. Yeah,
Steele has experience. He did get better over the season last year. I don't know if they'd be willing to look at Brandon Knight, who's going to be coming off the COVID protocol as part of some mix in this solution. I don't know. Like I said, I would pay good money to be able to sit there and track the numbers on the offensive linemen during the practices, but this figuring out is going to happen, I think, during the closed portion of the practices. So we're not really going to find out the solution probably until very late next week, if maybe even when the game begins is when we'll finally get the starting lineup.
Yeah, I do think Mike McCarthy will be cagey and dodgy about it. He'll be, like, hey, we're going to see. Marlon says, LOL, Steele is trash. Again, these are the options the Cowboys have left for themselves. And they knew that. The Cowboys knew that they were on shaky ground, maybe not in this sense, but on shaky health ground with both Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins entering the 2021 season, and they chose to pass on Rashawn Slater as just one example. They chose to only add Ty Nsekhe. They chose to continue to groom both Terrence Steele, Brandon Knight. I mean, anything else you want to add? Josh Ball, I suppose, technically an option. I mean, this is, to go back to your point, Tom, about, the NFL, the Cowboys knew, an all caps comment from Michael Harris says the NFL is out to get the boys. For crying out loud, Goodell was at the game in the booth with Ed Sheeran. Tom has every Ed Sheeran album, by the way, in his home, just so everybody knows.
I'm more like the guy that was like, I'll bite. What's an Ed Sheeran?
Yeah.
But, I've heard of him, but I don't. He's not my style of music,
A lot of people, Tom, in our comments have said the Cowboys could sign Russell Okung, a free agent. I agree with America's team, though. We don't sign free agents, guys, so we can drop the Okung signing. Tom, can you not just hear Stephen Jones being asked on the radio if the Cowboys are interested in free agent help and him saying, you know what? We like our guys. That's I mean, I'm already irritated at that. And it hasn't even, it's just a hypothetical at this point, but that's the way they're going to go. They're going to say we have, we have a lot of depth. We have a lot of guys. We have guys with NFL experience. Terrence Steele has started a bunch of games in the NFL. Brandon Knight started a bunch of games in the NFL. Ty Nsekhe, Dallas guy, he started a bunch of games in the NFL. We've got a lot of experience there. So what? You might have experience, but this is, it's, Antonio Tom says Martin is your option. Stop at the steal. I agree, but they might not do that. Remember, we are not even 1 year removed from Mike McCarthy poo-pooing this idea and calling it fantasy football. So that's why I'm just not exactly inclined to believe that he's going to be willing to go down that road here.
Yeah. However, you just mentioned the Okung thing, and all of a sudden I went, wait a minute. Didn't the Cowboys just free up some more salary cap money with some?
Hey.
Ooh.
Hey.
And again, they knew this was coming,
or they had an inclination it was coming.
Yeah,
I think that's fair to put it that
probably
way.
At that point knew that the appeal was not going to land their way, and all of a sudden that's maybe I'm reaching to connect those dots, but the dots are there. So
Chris Warner says, hey, we got the money now. Chris Warner's speaking your language. James Hammond says, sign RO. Great initials. Russell Okung has, by the way. Yeah. I mean, this is, I'll ask you, Tom, and our live, I know it's not a studio audience, but I'm going to go ahead and call it that because it sounds cool. I'll ask the live studio audience, and I'll put this question up as a banner as soon as I ask you, Tom. Is this the worst possible thing that could have happened to the Cowboys today? Like outside of, Dak's hurt or something, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
is this about as devastating of a day that we could have had?
Yeah, it's there may be, D-Law, Tyron, maybe they would have been an even worse thing, but Collins is probably in the top 3 or 4 players we didn't want to see this happen to outside of Dak. Maybe you have to throw Cooper in there.
Ooh, Tom, a super chat. So big applause right here for our friend Alex Pierce-Ling. Thank you for the super chat, Alex. This is Joe Philbin's time to shine. And, a lot of people, I know we had some articles about this over the offseason at the site, talked about last year. You know what? Joe Philbin, kind of an unsung hero. He had to work through the Terrence Steele. He had to work through the Brandon Knight. He had to be the one to deal with all the combinations of offensive linemen. This is Joe Philbin, for anyone who's unaware, is the team's offensive line coach. This is something that he has to fix now. He has to be the guy to put this fire out.
And I want to thank Alex Pierce-Ling for bringing that up because, yes, he was trying to make something out of just nothing, out of chaos last season. Now he's basically looking at one thing to fix. And he did, I think, as well as you could do with what he had to work with last season. So maybe he's another reason that we can take a little step back from the edge of the cliff. Let's see what he comes up with. Let's see what he does. And let's also see what he can do during, in game planning, along with Kellen Moore, who called an absolutely brilliant game last night. And what can they do to overcome the fact that your right tackle is going to be downgraded or with the unknown, if they put Zach Martin in, then I will just say, okay, good. Let's just keep what we got healthy for a while because I don't think Martin would be that much of a downgrade. He might even be an upgrade. He's that.
Oh, good. Hell yeah. He's an upgrade. I mean, yeah, but, and so, yeah, like you mentioned, Zach Martin doesn't want to play tackle. And if there's anyone on the team who I care about the opinion of in that sense, Zach Martin's in that group, right? So like it matters to me what Zach Martin does and does not want to do. However, Zach, bro, we're kind of smashing the glass, pulling the lever.
Yeah.
This is, is DEFCON 1 the most dangerous or is it DEFCON 5? I always forget.
DEFCON 1. DEFCON 5 is no viable threat. DEFCON 1.
So we're at like DEFCON 2 at this point. A tweet from fellow BTBer Tom, Connor Livesey. I was asked last night on the postgame show, whether we would consider trading Connor McGovern, actually, because, hey, Zach Martin's coming back. Look at this. And, certainly now there's no way on earth that we're trading Connor McGovern. But Connor notes, I'd be trying my best to move Van Der Esch for a corner, defensive tackle, or an offensive lineman. We've talked about the cons to trading players like that. Over the offseason, you got to trade Michael Gallup. You got to trade Amari Cooper. You got to move one of them. Well, Michael Gallup gets hurt today, or we find out how hurt he is today. Now it's like, whoo, told y'all I shouldn't have traded any wide receivers. Well, maybe now is the time that maybe you consider moving Leighton Van Der Esch. That one of all possible options. And I've been against that idea because depth is a valuable thing in the NFL, but now might be the time. Like, the season's not over. I don't even know that I would say the season is like in extremely dangerous jeopardy, but you're flirting with, you're playing with some fire. You know what I mean? Like, you were juggling three, pointy things. You've lit one of them on fire now. You know what I mean? It's a little bit dangerous.
Yeah. I don't know.
Tanner agrees, by the way. It's not a bad idea. We have consider a linebacker depth.
I just question how much you're going to get for Van Der Esch, given the fact that he's now clearly not a starter for Dallas.
As Alex again, shout out, thank you, Alex, for the next super chat here. Depth is good until it isn't, and maybe that's kind of how you feel, Tom. Like that, if you get rid of Van Der Esch, like, it sounds nice, right? Like, I'm gonna I'm gonna borrow from Peter to pay Paul. You know what I mean? But like, you're gonna you might pay that price. The linebacker play was okay last night, but part of that was because Leighton Van Der Esch was there as a point of depth.
Yeah, and is Jabril Cox ready to step up? And I don't know that we've got an answer for that. I don't want to get things to get too crazy. I would a lot rather see if they are thinking about Okung to be a possible answer, because I think that may be more possible than we realize. After what they saw last year and how good they looked last night, even Stephen Jones may be willing to loosen up and make a move that he wouldn't make. I was just wondering, is there any possible thing we could gain by maybe trading Anthony Brown? That wouldn't work.
Tom, you've got some jokes today, Tom. Nice.
I always have jokes. It's how you face disaster, is you try to crack a joke. So,
so if we evaluate options, option one is Russell Okung, or, one option is Russell Okung. One option is Zach Martin at right tackle with Connor McGovern at right guard. One option is, I don't know, anybody else with Zach Martin at right guard. Maybe that anybody else is Ty Nsekhe. I for what it's worth, I think that's the path that they will ultimately go down, is the Ty Nsekhe route, because that's the plan that they have prepped for. And so that's, they're gonna lean on that. They're gonna say, guys, this is why we studied. This is how we built the roster. So we were prepared for this. That's what we're gonna do. And so I think that's where they'll go. I'm not saying I think that's the wisest choice, but I think it is where they will head. Tom, let's move over briefly, because we've talked all Lyle Collins. The Michael Gallup news is important too today. Has the calf strain, going to miss 3 to 5 weeks. Shout out to 1534 for the super chat here on our YouTube channel. Is Cedric Wilson ready to be wide receiver 3? This is the thing I feel the best about. With today's, bad news when it comes to replacing, Lyle Collins, or replacing even Zach Martin at right guard. I honestly feel even better hypothetically, it's not hypothetical, but about Cedric Wilson replacing Michael Gallup, so to speak, than I even did Connor McGovern replacing Zach Martin, which would happen if you kick Martin out to right tackle. But so do you believe in Cedric Wilson?
Yeah, I think he had a decent game. He wasn't targeted a lot because basically he and Gallup were splitting the receptions through the game. But, I think they combined for something like 70 yards, and when you've got your top 2 wide receivers both over 100, you're getting some good production. I think Wilson is ready. And we will have the depth behind him coming back because Noah Brown should be off of COVID and clear and good to go. So I think Brown was just inactive last night because he'd been on COVID, and I don't think they were quite ready for him to take the field. But he should be fine for next Sunday. So yeah, I am not that concerned. I don't want to sit here and say that Cedric Wilson is completely interchangeable with Michael Gallup, but he is certainly not a huge step down. He's a capable wide receiver. He seems to have a little chemistry with Dak Prescott. And, we're going to get to see what he can do. He's been kind of, that journeyman, nose to the grindstone fourth wide receiver for a while. And it might be fun to see what he can do, assuming that the right tackle isn't letting everything down.
Rob X Pro notes that Cedric had a great game versus Seattle last year with Dak, so we've seen him break out. I agree. We've hyped up Cedric Wilson, but the loss of Michael Gallup is significant.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, I think if you rank the starters on the Cowboys, he's maybe fifth or sixth. And he's only that low because you've got Dak, you've got Zach Martin, normally you've got Tyron, you've got Amari Cooper, so he's in that neck of the woods. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Cowboys have lost 2 offensive starters today. Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal.
It is. And I will say that with Gallup, they are getting a preview of what they might be dealing with next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, that's honestly something I thought about. And, first, I think I speak for Tom. I know I speak for Tom. Our number one care is that Michael Gallup gets healthy, comes back, continues to ball out. We want to see that above all things. And we want to see Michael Gallup get paid in the offseason, whether that's by the Cowboys, somebody else. If it's somebody else, bring us that comp pick. Michael Gallup will appreciate the service, wish you health, wealth, happiness, and success there, except we hope you lose when you play the Cowboys. But this might impact his financial situation. If the speculation is right, and again, we know Lyle Collins, at least we believe Lyle Collins. Ed Werder of ESPN just tweeted, source, while it seems unlikely to succeed, lawyers for Cowboys offensive tackle Lyle Collins continue to appeal on his behalf, arguing the NFL policy allows for a fine, but not a suspension for a player who has only failed to appear for required drug testing. So a small window of hope, but ultimately, Lyle probably missing 5 games. Michael Gallup, we've seen the Cowboys, when you hear ranges like this, Tom, 3 to 5 weeks, they generally tend to lean on the side of caution, the longer stretch. And that stretch, 5 games, is what separates the Cowboys from their bye week. So if we fast forward through then, if we say Michael Gallup and Lyle Collins subsequently return week 7, I don't know that Michael Gallup has enough time at that point in the season to put together a season that sees him net massive money in free agency next year, especially in a free agency landscape that could feature Chris Godwin, that could feature Allen Robinson. I mean, there could be, that could be an implication here from this injury.
Yeah, it may be worse news for Gallup than it is for the team, because as you said, this could directly impact what he gets for what he was expecting to be a big payday. I think he will certainly come back on fire. You're mentioning the fact that they'll come back. They're going to have let's see here. Good grief, that's going to still be 11 games left to play. Is my math right?
It is right.
That's the new numbers. It's just like, wait a minute, that's used to be an entire season almost.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly now the Cowboys are looking at, what would be panic going into the bye week. If they're 4-2, I'm not really concerned, especially because I have a lot of faith in the rest of the NFC East teams to have their own struggles. The Washington football team is probably the biggest concern at this point. And, we'll find something out on Sunday.
Next Sunday.
That's what Sunday.
Oh, this Sunday. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, in 2 days, we're going to find out what they look like in their first game. Yeah. And I hate to put it this way, but I hope they all just flop. big time.
Tom, I want to bring up something there. Another super chat. Thank you to 1534, asking if there's a possibility that the suspension gets reduced for Lyle Collins. You mentioned Sunday. And we're still, it's week one, right? So we're kind of like, we're dusting off our routines, right? Like we're remembering, like, oh, so this is what it feels like. Like last night was like, wow, so this is what it feels like to border, between life and death, when the Cowboys are running near the very end of the game. But in case anybody forgot, Sunday morning, whatever platform or network you watch, whether it's NFL Network, ESPN, Sunday morning 8-9 a.m. is when the big time national insiders drop all their big stories for the week. And I would imagine, we're getting this question here whether there's a possibility the suspension gets reduced. We're not going to get an answer on this until Monday at the very least, because it's Friday, right? It's Friday. It's past 5 o'clock on the East Coast at the time of this being live. If you're watching it later, obviously, we'll podcast this as well. So if you're listening to this, that's obviously the case. But I do believe, Tom, that we are going to get the laid out explanation on Sunday morning on one of these national shows. Somebody's going to say, this is what happened with Lyle Collins. And I'm making this up. Let me be very clear. I'm being hypothetical because we don't know what happened just yet, but it's going to be, he was requested to take this test. He didn't show up. There was confusion, blah, blah, blah. They were traveling. They were in Oxnard, the COVID protocols. There's going to be something that kind of adds to the confusion here, because this doesn't add up. This doesn't smell right at initial, sort of landing. And so we'll hear that. And so I think we'll hear, then why or how there's a possibility. There's the NFL sometimes does this. They might reduce the suspension, and we'll start to hear what it is. We'll start to hear they might reduce it to 3 games, to 2 games, 4 games, whatever the case may be. But I do think that we'll get that fuller answer on Sunday morning during the national shows.
If we don't get dueling answers, what if we hear different takes on it? I'm certainly looking forward to hearing some of that. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm capable of doing the one thing that might really get us some inside information, because I can't, first off, I can't locate him, and I can't afford the Johnny Walker Blue to ply Jerry Jones with liquor and find out what's really going on. But it's certainly we're going to be holding our breath, I think, until we hear more. And if there was something that happened with an appeal, I don't think it's going to be Monday. I think we would find out if something changed. It would be more like Thursday or Friday.
Right. I just mean we'll hear the league office's processing of it on Monday. That will be the first, because we're back to the work week. I did want to bring this up. A tweet from our mutual friend Mark Lane, great friend of Blogging the Boys, does a great job covering the Cowboys and the Houston Texans. Tweeted out a Lyle Collins quote from July 24th, so not even 2 months ago, when he was asked about the hardest part of watching the Cowboys lose last year, knowing he couldn't be out there. Lyle Collins said, that was the hardest part, just knowing I couldn't be out there to help my team and be out there with my brothers. So that was the hardest part. So Lyle, seemingly was bothered by missing time. He missed the whole season last year. And so we don't want to jump to conclusions. We don't want to assume. We're still waiting for more information to kind of come out here. But I mean, this is tough cookies, Tom. It's tough. This is hard to take.
Yeah, that was for those that don't follow Twitter the way we do, with looking for every shred of information that can increase our understanding of the Dallas Cowboys, you may not understand the way this kind of a thing is just a kick right in the teeth. And this has been a bad one. There's been worse. It's not like he's lost for the season at this point. Although frankly, sometimes I worry that if the Cowboys go in and appeal something from Roger Goodell, they're probably the one team where Goodell might increase the penalty. It's just if you get to feeling paranoid after some of the things that have happened and seeing how other teams get treated much more kindly, as you mentioned earlier with the case with the Texans. So this has been a rough one. We're going to try to do everything we can to keep everybody informed. And that's really all we can do right now, because the rest is just speculation and waiting.
Has this day, Tom, this day being the news of Michael Gallup, and I think it's important the context of the day, and that we started it on such a positive note, right? And by the way, Big Country asks, does he lose his money? He is suspended without pay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what happens when you're suspended in the NFL. But this was such a positive day. I can't remember I actually think the last time I was this confident as a Cowboys fan after a loss. I know it's it's picking at old wounds. Was I could tell you the day. It was October 7th, 2013. It was the day after Tony Romo and Peyton Manning had the duel of the century at AT&T Stadium. Although I think at that time it was still Cowboy Stadium, if we're being technical. But that was the last time I felt like great after a Cowboys loss, despite the fact that, obviously the Cowboys lost. And so we all started this day on that note. So ultimately, I mean, has this day impacted your view of the team? If you were a 9 out of 10 this morning, which is feasible, are you now like an 8? Are you a 7? Like, are you still a 9?
I'd say it was more moving. I was probably a little bit more an 8 just because I was just now when this happened, I was sitting down, going over stats, looking at things, trying to figure out what we could glean from it, working on a article that discussed some of the issues they did have. And I'm still digesting everything from the game. So I wasn't ready to quite move up to a 9. But I was pretty firmly an 8. Now, yeah, I'm down to 7, and
I think it's
kind of a wider, uncertain range. It may be as low as a 6.
It has to knock you down like 1 point. If you were a 9 to an 8, an 8 to a 7, whatever. And because appropriately, this comes from Skeptical Fan. Next week, Tyron Smith will get hurt or Zach Martin. I've seen this before. The Cowboys are always making mistakes. I don't know that getting hurt is making a mistake, but the reason I bring this up is now like Tyron Smith, like keep Tyron in a bubble. You know what I mean? Because if Tyron goes down at any point in the next month, now it's DEFCON 1. You know what I'm saying? Like we were already, on thin ice, but this is, I mean, we're down to no more lives left in this game. We have to go fight Bowser. You know what I mean? Like this is the challenge of all challenges right now facing the Cowboys for the next 5 weeks from a health perspective, because this is literally the point on their team where they're the one place where their health could not be tested, because they don't have any proven commodities behind either tackle. Ty Nseki's not proven in terms of his time with the Cowboys. Obviously, Brandon Knight's not proven. Terrence Still's not proven. I mean, because what if we play that? What if Zach Martin gets kicked out to right tackle and then something happened to Tyron Smith? Then what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like what, you're just playing musical chairs. This is just last year all over again. And that's where I think people are a little bit nervous.
Yeah, but that's every NFL team when injuries come up are dealing with that. And just to throw in a little bit of a counterweight, everybody was scared to death about Connor McGovern going in against the Tampa Bay defensive line and their blitzing. And he acquitted himself admirably. I think that worked out better than almost anybody expected. A few people were pumping him a little bit because he didn't look that bad last year when he was called on, especially as time went on. But, could that happen again? I mean, we might get surprised and find out that, say, Terrence Steele were to come in and be an adequate NFL right tackle. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but he's out there, and the Cowboys offense can function perfectly well with Dak Prescott and with Ezekiel Elliott, because we didn't see the running game last night because it wasn't going to work anyway. And they wisely realized that the only shot they had was in a Dak Tom Brady shootout. And they almost pulled it off. We're going to see the running game come along. Having Zach Martin on the field will be key to that, because he's kind of where Zeke makes his ground up running behind him. So, we're at the initial panic stage. I'm not going to say we're going to quit worrying or gain a whole lot of confidence, but let's see what Philbin can work. Let's see what Kellen Moore can do to scheme around this stuff. Let's see how whoever winds up lining up at right tackle does. We may come to regret this happening, or it may be, okay, that wasn't quite as bad as we thought it was going to be.
I did see a tweet earlier that said, and I forget who tweeted this, so I apologize, but all credit to whoever it was that tweeted it. You're my hero. If there were any lingering effects to the Stinger issue, Lyle does now have 5-6 weeks, counting the bye, to get right. You know, I mean, so if you're really, really reaching for positives, that is one, I suppose. It's ironic that the Cowboys are this beat up when they're going to face the Chargers of all teams. And it's been, you know, we did the live roster reaction show, Tom, you and I, and, you know, we kept saying, like, you know, the Cowboys are going to, you know, they're going to have to make a decision because these players are going to come off of COVID. They're going to have to put a player on injured reserve, whatever. And last week it was like, okay, you know, Zach Martin's on COVID himself. Noah Brown's back. You didn't have to make that decision, but you'll have to make that decision next week when Zach Martin's back. Michael Gallup's hurt. Okay, well, you're not going to have to make that decision, you know, but Zach Martin's going to come back. Oh, Lyle Collins is now suspended. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other, I mean, not a positive, but just, you know, interesting thing is the Cowboys have been able to stash in different ways, if you want to call this that, different players on different points of keeping them safe on their roster. But I think everyone would still rather have a fully healthy and fully available team.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Anything else, Tom? Anything else? The Cowboys are 0-1. You know, there's that too. But yeah. I think that you kind of touched on this. At the end of the day, they have Dak Prescott, and that keeps them in contention no matter what, especially the way he played last night. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it yet, Tom. I know you've been very busy. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, we had an incredible breakdown. Mark Schofield starting a new series at bloggingtheboys.com called Dak Watch. He went and broke down 8 plays from Thursday night, including the interception and including an incredible perspective on the last play of the game that helped the Cowboys get into field goal range, the 3rd down conversion to CeeDee Lamb. Very much worth your time. You can go watch that here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Check out some of this written analysis at bloggingtheboys.com.
Yeah. So everybody tune in. We're trying to give you as much as we can to help you figure out what's happening.
Tom, before we leave right now, Michael Gallup of the Dallas Morning News tweeted a statement. Let's see here. This is a statement from Lyle Collins' representatives. He's on Twitter at Gallup NFL. We are extremely disappointed in how the NFL has handled this entire matter, from trampling on Mr. Collins' rights to prematurely releasing the information knowing a timely appeal was filed, to intentionally misleading the court at the hearing. The extent and effort the NFL went to accomplish its ends is appalling. It is a very, very heavy statement. Tom, you react while I get this typed up on screen for everybody.
Yeah, this is shades of the Ezekiel Elliott suspension. I'm getting that same vibe that for some reason all the bad blood that led to that, which frankly seems to exist between Roger Goodell and Jerry Jones, is still lingering, because they do seem to kind of dump on the Cowboys with a lot of this stuff. So I don't really know. It feels almost like there's something else going on, that for some reason they still want to make an example of the Dallas Cowboys, which seems incredibly counterproductive, because did you see the ratings from last night? This is their biggest draw, and they keep wanting to reduce them to mediocrity. It's a total mystery that I don't understand, and I don't, I hope this isn't just attorney hyperbole, which would just anger the NFL more. I hope there's some substance to their complaint. I don't know if it'll ultimately do any good, because Roger Goodell is a law unto himself. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to change as long as he's ensuring that the owners are getting millions and even billions of dollars to play with. So we'll have to find out. It's going to be, a real interesting thing.
The statement, Tom, I had to put it up in 2 little banners here just because it's that long. But the first part, again, reads, for anybody who, didn't like my reading of it. We are extremely disappointed. Again, this is from Lyle Collins' representatives. Extremely disappointed in how the NFL has handled this entire matter, from trampling on Mr. Collins' rights to prematurely releasing the information knowing a timely appeal was filed, continued saying, to intentionally misleading the court at the hearing. This last sentence, Tom, the extent and effort the NFL went to accomplish its ends is appalling. So, Tom, I ask you, and I'll put this back up here, this last part. What are the ends? that what like what's the insinuation here? Is the ends like poo-pooing the Cowboys? Like is that the end? Like
Yeah, that's the question. What's going on here? What are they trying to accomplish? And again, we're flailing away with shadows and mist. We don't know what is actually behind all this. We don't know what happened. We don't know the circumstances of Lyle missing the test. We don't know why he missed them. Was there an ulterior motive on his part for not getting tested?
Joseph,
I don't want to speculate too much, but
Joseph Colon asks if he can play under appeal. He cannot. By the way, Tom, round of applause again for Alex Pierce-Ling for the super chat. Says, thanks for the shout out, Mr. Ochoa. Hey, Alex, we're on a first name basis here. It's RJ. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, and Chris Werner, Tom, brings up the ends is the policy enforcement. Maybe the NFL does truly care that much about their policy. And which,
yeah, explain what's going on with Deshaun Watson then.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Michael Gallup just had a tweet. Another wrinkle. This is why we did this as a live show, so everybody knows. And again, we will podcast this for you, but Michael Gallup tweet: Cowboys right tackle Lyle Collins did not test positive for substance, source said. He declined to test. In any event, suspension stands. He'll be docked 5 game checks, an amount that would be higher if not for March contract restructure, which converted some salary to signing bonus. So now if you really want to play conspiracy theorist, Tom, did the Cowboys know this was possible? So that's why they converted the salary to, help Lyle financially. You know what I mean? Like, because we know the Cowboys will look after their own in that sense, although financially it took them forever to look after their own in Dak Prescott. But I mean, going back to March, that's way too big of a conspiracy theory, I think, at this point in time here in September. But again, according to the Dallas Morning News, Lyle Collins did not test positive for substance. He declined to test, which is a difference of opinion, which I think is the point that Lyle's representation is trying to hang their hat on, that players can be fined for choosing to decline a test as opposed to testing for something specifically.
Yeah, declined to test, and that's the thing. Was this just
played the fifth?
Yeah, was it just a general screen, or was he declining to test for something specific like marijuana, which that adds a different yeah. The more we hear, the more confusing this gets. And that's kind of the problem.
That's why I do think on Sunday morning, when the Adam Schefters, the Ian Rappaports, the Tom Pelisseros, the Jay Glazers, Jay Glazer has been really tight with the Cowboys. He was the one who first reported the hiring of Mike McCarthy. He was the one who was first on Aldon Smith. Tom Pelissero was really tight with Mike McCarthy, did the McCarthy Project, had the exclusive interview with McCarthy and Dak out in Oxnard this year. So, I think we'll get a little bit of clarity as the weekend continues to unfold. A weekend, Tom, that I hope, and I know you do, everybody enjoys, despite the fact that the Cowboys lost, despite the fact that it feels like our pets' heads are falling off here. But there's there's a lot of football left. There's a lot of season left. Whatever happens with this Lyle Collins stuff, with anything regarding the Cowboys. By the way, here, before I finish here, John Stanley says, why not take the test? I mean, only Lyle Collins can answer that question ultimately. But whatever happens with Lyle, with anything otherwise, we will keep you updated as we always do at bloggingtheboys.com. Tom, true or false, the source, the home for the best Dallas Cowboys coverage on the internet?
Yes, true. This is it.
True. bloggingtheboys.com. You can check us out. We have a lot of stuff here available on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. I mentioned Dak Watch with Mark Schofield. We have highlights from Thursday night's game. Our post-game show's still up if you want to go back and watch that, obviously. Please do subscribe here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. People ask us all the time, how can we support you? Support us by checking out the site, following Tom on Twitter at Tom Ryle BTB, me on Twitter at RJ Ochoa, subscribing here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, subscribing to the Blogging the Boys podcast network. You can hear Tom there every Thursday with Roy White on Riled Up. Leave a rating, ride review. If you do care about helping us out, those are the ways to do it. Tom, anything else before we get on out of here?
Let's just not have anything new in the next few days, please.
That's a good idea. My dog's about to bark, so I think we have to go. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.